Hey guys, in today's video we're going to be doing this case study that is a densely populated country or area, and the place that I chose is Greater London. So before we start a case study, I always say that you should first have some background information and then get into the causes, effects, or the things that are relevant to that case study. So first of all, I would start off my study by saying Greater London is one of the most densely populated areas in the UK, and there are a range of factors that have led to this. And then I would mention that it has a population of 8.982 million and a population density of 5701 people per kilometer square. So for Greater London, I'm just gonna go ahead and make a table. So obviously in the exam, I recommend that you write down your answers in discussion form and not use tables or lists. However, before you start, you can just maybe at the corner of the page or wherever you have space, you can make a little table like this to help you brainstorm before the exam so that your answer doesn't come out as messy or last minute. Can't believe I'm struggling to draw a line. So the first physical factor is, and so remember that we went over the causes of dense population over here. So I actually explained this part in another video. So these are the causes of dense population, and I said this you can apply to almost any densely populated areas, but since it's a case study, you might have to be a bit more specific to the place. So the first physical factor is flat relief. And we know that because there is a flat relief, it is easy to build houses and buildings. Secondly, it's located near a body of water, that is the River Thames. Thirdly, there is the absence of natural disasters. And lastly, the land is fertile. And thing is, if you want to add on, again, like I said, you're not supposed to write. There isn't a certain rule on writing your answers in bullet points or so, but if you write it in bullet points, then you really lose the opportunity to expand and develop your answer. So for example, right now, I want to develop this point over here, and I want to say that right now the river is being used for transporting goods. But if I was to write it in a bullet point, then I wouldn't have much, it wouldn't be very effective for me to develop the point in case I just remember it later. So that's why it's always good to write your answers in a discussion form and not in a note form. So next we're going to talk about the human factors that make London a very densely populated area. So first of all, London being part of an MEDC, it is an important global center for finance and trade. So a lot of businesses would want to set up there. A lot of TNCs would want to invest there. So there's going to be head offices, a lot of blue collars. Secondly, you can say that London has an effective integrated transport infrastructure. So that means it has well-developed transport links that could refer to the public transport or the cabs, taxis, or just people highways that are connected to other highways, well engineered roads, and so on. Next we have, you can say that London has an excellent communications infrastructure. So as it suggests, communication is an important part. I'm not sure if these still exist, but I think London has one of those call booth things where you step into a booth and then you can just call someone. Next, we have socio-political factors. So first, the crime rates are relatively low compared to other parts in the UK. Then you can say that the education and healthcare provision is well developed in London. Then lastly, you can say that the government offers a range of incentives, that is cash basically, that's in many forms, including building grants, housing schemes, and infrastructure schemes. So for a place to be well populated, or should I say densely populated, it's not enough that the place has just good physical factors and human factors. It should have all these three so that the place is densely populated, because even if there's a flat relief and good transport links, if the place is too expensive to stay, then a lot of people might just not consider staying there. So that's why the government offering incentives is one of the main reasons that a lot of people stay there. So in this video, I think I'm just going to go ahead and talk about the sparsely populated country or area too, since they're both closely related. Now, if you note, in the previous case study, that is a densely populated area, I didn't include much statistics, and you have to realize that you don't have to include statistics for everything. For every case study, I only had 2, but in some of the previous ones, such as population growth or migration, I had to include a lot. And so whether the amount of statistics that you include in your answer is really relevant to the case study. Some case studies may not need any at all. However, it's always good to have 1 or 2. So this case study is a sparsely populated area, and the place I'm choosing is the Canadian Northlands. So as all case studies go, I'm going to give a background information and then cause, effects, and things like that. So firstly, I'm going to say that the Canadian Northlands, so they're an area of North America, and they have a population density of less than 1% per kilometer. And now we're going to talk about the reasons for the sparse population of this place. So let me say that we're going to start with the climatic conditions, and that's actually the main reason why the Canadian Northlands are sparse, has a sparse population. So I would sort of give a statement, sort of like a thesis statement before writing my paragraph. I would say that the influence of temperature or climate is very prominent or very clear in why most people don't want to stay here. So this would be my beginning statement after the background information. So I'd start off my case study by saying that the Northlands are an area of North America that has a population density of less than 1 person per kilometer, and that the influence of low temperature is very prominent, and it's a key factor in explaining the low rural population density. So next I'm going to go and talk more about the factors. So let me just make this smaller. So in the Northlands, winters are very cold, and most of the region has a mean temperature below 20 degrees. And we're talking about January because that's when winter is, right? Next, I'll say that further north of the Northlands, the summers are increasingly short. So the norther you go, the shorter the summer becomes. So I'm just going to put in bullet points here for your understanding, but again, don't write bullet points in your exam. Then, so because of this climate, agriculture is not, you're not able to do much agriculture. So I've written that the climate in much of the region is beyond the limits of agriculture. Next, you can say that most of the Northlands are affected by permafrost. And the ground is permanently frozen to a depth of 300 meters. That means even if you dig that well, you won't be able to get much water out because the ground is frozen. So I'm going to show you guys a picture of what permafrost looks like so you have a better understanding on why these climatic conditions are difficult to live in. So as you can see, this is what permafrost looks like, and so this is just a picture I've got from the internet. I'm not sure how deep this is, but imagine that this is 300 meters deep, and that is what it will look like in the Northlands of Canada. Now, as we know, ice would melt, and since permafrost is a sort of ice in the summer, so I'm just going to continue writing that in the summer when the permafrost melts, the landscape becomes marshy and waterlogged. So obviously life is extremely difficult in this environment, and the very few people who live there are involved in the exploitation of raw materials and maintaining defense installations. So the last factor that you can mention is the poorly developed transport links. So there's great distance separating communities. And so these have created transportational difficulties. And then you can also mention that the largest settlement has only 1,900 people. Can you imagine? That's very sparsely populated. and to think that it is the largest one. And I'm not sure, but I think this largest settlement they're referring to is Yellow Lake. So that is it for this case study. And so basically, I'm just going to go over it again. So the Canadian Northlands are an area of North America, and it has a population density of less than 1 kilometer per person. So in this area, there is the climatic conditions are a key factor for this density. So winters are cold, and most of the region has a mean January temperature below 20 degrees. You can also go ahead and say that because of this, the region is, beyond the limits of agriculture. You can also say that the Northlands are affected by permafrost, and it's permanently frozen by 300 meters. Then you can say that in the summer, when the permafrost melts, the landscape becomes marshy and waterlogged. Then you can say that the poorly developed transport links, so that contributes to the sparse population as well. So I'm pretty sure that if you just follow all of this, and that is have a few statistics, this one and this one, you will get around 7 marks. And of course, with development and expanding of your answer, I'm sure you can do well.